Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, everything new is old again. We're talking about new Super Mario Bros. U. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, joined as always by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Hi, Mark.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I was just thinking about this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
We went to Red Lobster.
Oh, did we?
We went to Red Lobster because it's Shrimp Fest, as I think it usually is. I think it's usually Shrimp Fest at Red Lobster. And I had endless shrimp, which is, of course, not actually endless. You reach a point where you're an adult and you say, I must force the end.
But, like, theoretically endless. I always think of the Simpsons episode when they go to
The Frying Dutchman.
the Frying Dutchman.
Yes. And Homer does not have all the fish he could eat.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. Turns out I can only really have like 4 servings of shrimp before I'm like, that's more than I need.
That's a good amount of shrimp.
It felt like a lot.
What was your favorite?
Geez. There was a spicy one that was also very sweet. That if we got like extra of the rub to put on, to kind of like counterbalance. There's
Nashville Hot.
the Nashville Hot, yes. That was Micah Gordon's invention of you need more of that dry rub on there, otherwise it's just too sweet.
I had the tilapia, which is, I'm pretty sure, is garbage fish that has been branded tilapia to make it sound more exotic or interesting.
Did you feel like you were having an exotic meal?
Yeah. It worked on me. It's like the placebo of fish.
I think that's tilapia's tagline, right? the placebo of fish.
Absolutely.
So Shrimp Fest is a great time. We had a great time. This is what happens on the Nintendo show here. Thanks for tuning in. We are going to be talking about the new Super Mario Bros. U. But in the meantime, if you'd like to, rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff, we are on Apple Podcasts and a bunch of other places. If you could hit us up on any of those platforms and say, hey, good job, this many stars. This is why I like this show. This is why I don't like this show. That'd be great. We're on Twitter and Facebook, NinCart Society, and just Nintendo Cartridge Society. And if you ever want to write us an email, you can, or if you want my copy of Sonic Forces, you can just email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. But, we're not here for, this isn't about plugging ourselves, Mark. This is about new Super Mario Brothers. U. Mark, why are we talking about this game?
So Jeremy Parrish,
Mm-hmm.
who in my opinion, is the preeminent?
What, post-eminent?
I think he is. I really think that he's one of the greatest minds writing and about video games.
Mm-hmm.
And Polygon recently commissioned him to create a list of the best Mario games, and he put New Super Mario Bros. U as number 1, as the greatest Super Mario Bros. Game ever created.
Now, that raises some flags, right? That makes us go like, wait a minute. What?
Yeah, it's a very interesting choice.
Yeah, so we took the opportunity then this weekend to play all the way through.
I hadn't played it before.
Right.
And if this person I admire so much said it was the best Mario game ever.
A series you enjoy, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And have very high opinions of specific entries.
It feels like silly that I had never played it before.
Prior to this weekend, what would you say your favorite Mario game was?
Galaxy, maybe Galaxy 2. They honestly run together for me.
It's hard to separate them.
It's become like one game in my mind.
Mhm.
The Galaxy games, I think, are and still are my favorite Mario games.
That makes sense. I would say for me either World or Super Mario 3D World is so good, man.
Oh yeah, that's so crazy that I didn't even consider the 2D games because Super Mario Brothers 3 is right up,
Also,
obviously
yeah.
like right up there.
Right. So we've basically named half the series now.
No, there are so many Mario
There
games.
are so many Mario games and so many great Mario games. But I think sort of absent from any list that we would make, or any like top 5 lists, would probably be any of the new Super Mario. Not that they're bad, but just that we frequently, I don't know, I frequently think of them as not remarkable in like the canon of Mario games.
Yeah, I agree, and that's not to say that I didn't enjoy them a lot. Like when New Super Mario Brothers came out on DS, I loved it. I was so excited for more 2D Mario. I don't know that the game has aged super well, but I don't think it's terrible.
I mean, there's no way to know. There's no way to go back. There's no way to go back and play it. Except you could pop it in your 3DS and play it right now.
New Super Mario Brothers Wii, I had a blast playing.
Yes.
Had that frantic 4-person multiplayer. I have so many fond memories of that game, but I don't consider it up there in like the pinnacle of the series.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I think happens on especially the Wii version is that all uniqueness of levels kind of melts away, right? That the entirety of the game is sort of overridden by the chaos of having 4 people running into each other and trying to fly around with propeller hats or whatever. And so it becomes less of a game and more of just like an exercise in chaos, which is fun in one way or another, but it's fun in a very like Wii kind of way, right? So like, I think that's something that like the rest of the entries in this series have sort of like a different box to like check off, right? Like the first one on DS was like first 2D Mario in a long time. The one on Wii is like it's chaos in a bottle. And then the 3DS one, New Super Mario Brothers 2, was like a weird coin rush kind of game. And then this one, New Super Mario Brothers U, kind of is like the chaos in a bottle thing, but kind of backs it up with more level diversity and maybe some like design choices that take some of that chaos away, right? One of the I just referred to the propeller hats in the first one, and they come back eventually in New Super Mario Brothers U, but like they're not in most of the game, which I think just having the ability to like because all the propeller hat does is like make your character jump like way up super high, and then like everything has to zoom way out to fit all the characters on screen, and then like you drill down fast when you push down.
There is basically a substitute mechanic for the propeller hat that's available more frequently, and that's the pink baby Yoshis. Those work very similarly when you like when you're not like spinning up. It doesn't have that mechanic, but it is kind of like a
it inflates like a balloon.
It inflates like a balloon, and it lifts you, and then you can come down.
Right.
It's kind of like a way to cheat your way through a lot of these levels.
Yeah.
Not cheat, but just like
like be a dirty rotten cheater and just not earn your way through those levels. Mark's got a really stringent get good philosophy now. Yeah, well, I don't mean to suggest that there's nothing at all like the propeller hats in this. The flying squirrel costume is similar in that you can get like a little jump boost to it there, but there's no. I just feel like the mobility is a little bit constricted, so that it's less of like a free ride to just like blow out the stage. And travel up and down at kind of alarming speeds. So like it feels more measured to me than the original, or not the original, but I guess the second game in the series.
The Wii version.
Yeah, the Wii version.
Yeah, I agree. It's like they having not played Luigi, the super
Mm-hmm. Luigi U. Mm-hmm.
Super Luigi U. This definitely feels like the most edited and like
Mm-hmm.
well curated version of the new Super Mario Brothers games
Yeah.
because they have the building blocks and the learning from the previous games, and they're able to incorporate a lot of those elements, like the tiny mushrooms
Yeah.
that like shrink you down, and you can skim on the top of water and enter special pipes and things like that. And it has the 4-player fun and a little bit of the chaos of the Wii version,
Mm-hmm.
and but it doesn't have like some of the superfluous things that get left behind. Like the first game, you were able to like grow Mario very large and just like
Mm-hmm.
smash through levels, and there really wasn't a point to that other than it looked visually interesting.
Yeah, it's that's interesting that you bring up the that like supersized mushroom and both the teeny tiny mushroom, um, because the teeny tiny mushroom does appear in this game, but it seems like it's less,
Abused.
well, kind of less crucial, right? Like, in the original New Super Mario Brothers, you would have to finish some like the end castles as teeny tiny Mario, so that he would exit a different way, and then you were able to access a different world. That puts like a weird like constraint on being able to access entire worlds of that game. Of like, now you have to finish this level as a teeny tiny Mario. And in the Wii U version of this game, there are some big coins that you can't get without being super small, but like there's no, you know what I mean? It's less like a gate on a secret exit to a level, and more of like a fun thing you can do, or just like an extra way to like get those big coins.
Exactly, and that's what I mean by I feel like this game is the most well curated of the new Super Mario Brothers series because they are able to incorporate those elements, but they use them, I think, like smarter in a
Hmm.
way that it makes them more enjoyable. Like even the 4-player multiplayer, by taking out stuff like the propeller hat, they're they are able to like tame the frenetic energy,
Yeah.
and so it still feels unpredictable, and you can still like troll your friends,
Hmm.
but it doesn't feel like manic.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We played most of the day, just the two of us, but in the early go we were joined by my girlfriend Sarah. Um, and first of all, weird little trip to dig the Wii remotes back out, right?
Yeah.
And like get AA batteries for all of them. But it ended up being a lot less fussy than I remembered, or sort of like feared that it was going to be. All of the remotes worked immediately and synced up with the system, kind of no problem. Um, Also, weird little side note that it is strange to turn on the Wii U and go to like the plaza at the beginning of it, and it's empty because Miiverse doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, we were joking, it's like I Am Legend.
That's right. It's like I Am Legend, but you don't have that fun dog running around with you.
You don't get the heartbreak of the
No,
dog as
that's
well.
true. You're spared. You're spared that part. Spoilers for I Am Legend, I guess.
um I think like the new Super Mario Brothers games, and especially new Super Mario Brothers U, is really interesting in the history of Nintendo and like the context in which it exists,
Hmm.
because by the time that new Super Mario Brothers came out on the DS, um it was like a lot of for the developers and for Nintendo, it was a lot of learning how to make 2D Mario again,
Sure.
because the team that had made like the classic Mario games had all dispersed, and they were in like higher leadership executive positions in the company. And so I feel like a lot of new Super Mario Brothers is like learning again, and that's why the first game is a little bit clunkier,
Hmm.
especially in hindsight. And you can see, like with each one, they got a little bit more confident, a little bit better, and then the Wii U version is kind of the culmination of that.
I think I think that's a good point, that like there's sort of a relearning curve for the creators, but I think also there's this sort of classic Mario meets like modern sensibility that you know probably took a couple games to really master too. Like, yeah, we know that people play games and are interested in 2D style Mario games, but it's also like, well, how do we play games now? It's we if Super Mario Brothers 3 came out fresh now, we would look at it a little bit differently and be like, well, why can't I do this? Why is there there's no save feature in that game, just for one. But like, just sort of introducing or like streamlining some of that stuff or bringing modern sensibilities to 2D Mario, I think is all like an important part of that. And we when we played, there are only a couple times that you encounter those like the motion controls, like to affect other platforms, like within levels. And I remember the original Wii version of it being like riddled with that, right? So yeah, it seems like there's a lot of um sanding away of like the rougher edges or of like the more gimmicky edges to just get to a game that works.
And I don't know. I feel like the new Super Mario Brothers games have kind of they have a strange reputation
For sure.
where they're enjoyable. People play them a ton, but I don't think that they are roundly regarded as the best that the series has to offer. And I think for me a weird amount of that is the like art style,
Yeah, let's talk about that art style.
or and even like honestly just like the music, like the whole like aesthetic package that is New Super Mario Brothers. I don't know. It's difficult for me to articulate why it doesn't really work. It just feels like unfinished. It feels like it lacks the finesse and care that Nintendo regularly gives like the presentation of their games.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. I don't know if I see it as a lack of care necessarily, but like certainly a lack of personality. Like, I even in like Super Mario Run, like
Which is based heavily on
yeah,
the
based
new
heavily
game.
on certainly that art style, but I think there's a little bit more personality in that game. Like the voices are kind of cuter, and like when Mario kind of like puts up his hand to like give you nucks for like beating a level or whatever. Um, or like you can put that up against the amount of personality and just like weird, funny stuff in like Odyssey or the Galaxy games, or even the 3D games, World and Land. That all of those just have so many like weird visual concepts, and just like kind of fun or funny, challenging ideas, and none of that like the new games are very like middle of the road, right? Like
For
enemy types are super straightforward, and very just like classic Mario but in 3D.
for the most part, I think there are still those like little Nintendo flourishes, but they're much more rare. Like the characters that everybody dances along to the music,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
Like you're like going, and then there's like those little
little Koopas.
little Koopas that will take a break from whatever they're doing to like sway back and forth when the music calls them to, or like when you're holding the baby Yoshis and they're all singing along to the song. So when we were in the ghost house
Yeah.
with those Yoshis that like light up, and yeah, and they're singing along, and like that's adorable. That's super cute.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So there are those flourishes, but they're just rare.
Yeah, I mean
They don't show up with enough regularity.
yeah. It's very strange because like I'm thinking back through like our play session, and like there are times where like Nabbit will appear, which I think he was introduced in the 3DS one, and he like steals treasures from Toad's house, and you have to like go back into a level and like chase him down, and like there's a whole little thing that happens, but like it doesn't, for whatever reason I'm not struck by like the character of it, you know?
But I feel like that's also true of the characters that they revisit, like the Koopa kids.
Sure.
Like, and I don't know if some of that is the way they're rendered, like the art style,
Mm-hmm.
but or like having like Boomer, is that his name?
Possibly. Yeah, the like the mid
Boom
boss.
Boom. Yeah, like
Boom.
the
Yeah. He's the same mid boss from
3,
from Super Mario Brothers 3.
and
You
he
know,
works pretty much the
doon
same.
doon doon doon.
And he works pretty much the same that like he did in Super Mario Brothers 3,
Mm-hmm.
but th- that part of it feels a little like pandering to me in a way
Mm.
that we don't normally see from Nintendo. Right? Where
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
like, here's this stuff that you like from Super Mario Brothers 3.
Yeah. It's sort of just like representation without like being an effective homage or like having any
Or like yeah, or an interesting
repackaging
take
of it.
on it.
Yeah.
Like again, like the same sort of thing is we were remarking on you like bosses or like the Koopa kids are in airships.
Yeah.
And this harkens back to Super Mario Brothers 3, and you would board the airship and you would have to traverse through it before going down a pipe and like fighting one of the Koopa kids. In this game, you just kind of like get shot
It's a yeah.
onto.
The final level of each world is a castle level, and at the end of the castle is a cannon that shoots you onto the airship, and then the only thing that happens on the airship is you fight the Koopa Kid.
Right, in kind of like a nondescript like helm of the ship, or one time you're on like a crow's nest, but there's nothing really like it just feels like it feels more like any other Mario game, like checking like a laundry list of things they
Yeah.
want to include.
Well, that's a great point. Like the why even make them airships then? Like why not just make them their castles where the Koopa Kids are, which is exactly what Super Mario World did. It's the airships are only in there because we recognize them from Super Mario Brothers 3. Like literally that's the only reason they're there.
And so this game, the whole like framing device, I guess, of the world map is that they all seem to be like every world seems to be dessert themed.
Mm-hmm.
So you are still seeing the classic like ice level, the classic like water levels, the classic desert levels, but they are all have kind of like a dessert spin. Like it's like layer cake desert
Mm-hmm.
or like
Soda
soda
pop,
falls,
right.
and but even that like is not very. It never really felt like they did anything interesting with that.
Right, and like none of that really comes across in like the level design or any of the like the background art. The layer cake desert looks like a desert, you know, like a desert. And and you know, it's that specifically with the Soda Lake or whatever it's called. We have an example in another modern Mario game where in Odyssey specifically, when you get to the beach side, seaside, I believe is the name of the kingdom, the water there is carbonated, um, which is just like a fun, dumb like thing where you're like, yeah, cool, it's carbonated water. That's silly and like that feels like something. And then when you're actually in that space, you're like, yeah, this is a champagne fountain or whatever. And it all just feels like fun and cool and exciting, and like that design aesthetic like all holds together. But like if it didn't say in New Super Mario Brothers U that this was like Soda Lake, you would never know that it was a Soda Lake.
Yeah, or like you said, like layer cake desert.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't affect the gameplay or the world in any interesting way.
Right. Even just like the aesthetic of it, like it's just a word. And in the very first world is Acorn Plains. So it's not even consistent with its own acorn. That's not. I will not have acorns for dessert.
I refuse.
I refuse. Even with whipped cream and chocolate sauce, I would say no, thank you. Take those back to the tree. Not even take them back
From
to the
whence
kitchen.
they came.
Yes.
But you know, for like as much as this game has like, I guess a lot of the same criticisms that I would have of any of the other new Super Mario Brothers games, there is a lot to like about it.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I think it comes in like
we're skewing kind of negative now.
but we had
Yeah.
fun playing it.
Absolutely.
And especially the later you get into the game, you know, this is my same thought on Odyssey, and it just
kind of most modern Mario games.
Yeah,
really.
it seems to be the way that they are built is they save the good stuff for last.
Mhm.
And so the last couple of worlds, it feels like the platforming becomes more, I don't even want to say like difficult, but
just
more
kind of
like
more
complex.
demanding.
Yeah.
Really.
And so you actually have to kind of like pay attention to what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And those were definitely like my favorite levels.
Like as we got later into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the meringue cloud level or world yeah, it started to get more more demanding, and again I guess it's just a direct throwback to Super Mario Brothers 3, but there's that level with the like little flying beetle guys where when you land on them then they like kind of take a little dip and then go back up. um that's just straight out of Super Mario 3, but like they actually had something like interesting to express with those little beetly guys, you know?
Right, and they had a twist on it because there was the giant
Right, the
beetle
giant
things
ones.
that were not fans of you jumping on them.
No, they just went right down.
So it added like a new variable or like an interesting way to interact with like this platforming challenge that I had experienced before.
So a couple things were different between when we started playing and when we stopped playing towards the end of the game. At the beginning there were 3 of us. At the end there were 2 of us. At the beginning the levels were maybe too easy. At the end they're appropriately challenging. At the beginning we were sober. Later in the game we were not. I do think that this game benefits from like just hitting like a nice like hangout vibe, right? Drinking a little bit, but I also think that it benefited from like the slimming down of our player base to just the 2 of us.
Yeah,
I don't know
think
that
so
would
too.
be as fun by myself. In fact, I've owned this game for 3 years, and I've never finished it either by myself or with someone else, because I don't think it would be that fun to do by myself.
I think it's I think the only one that I've really played by myself was the one on DS,
Yeah.
right? But I I think the genius of these games, of the Wii game and of you, is that it's a different kind of fun
Yes.
when you get more than 2 people, like when you get 3 or 4 people, than I'm having when it was just like the 2 of us trying to complete these challenging levels.
Right.
You have, like you're saying, you have to have that kind of like party hangout vibe when you're playing with 3 or 4 people, because the platforming itself is going to be more loose,
Right.
you know, and you're gonna like things are just gonna happen
You're
and
gonna
people are
mess
gonna
up,
die
right.
and you're gonna mess up, and you just kind of have to be okay with that. If you're trying to do like precise platforming with 4 people in this game, I'm sure it's possible, but I don't.
You gotta have a tight squad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's after we beat the game, we went back because we wanted to unlock some of the like secret worlds. There's a star road in this that you can access after you've finished the game. And to access some of the roads or some of the levels in Star Road, you have to have collected all of the large coins in each level in a world. So we went back into Acorn Plains. First of all, said leave those acorns in the kitchen, thank you. But then like the 2 of us just like kind of went in and like muscled our way through. And it's interesting how like you can see like, okay, I know that I can platform my way up there. Or since there are 2 of us, you can really just like launch each other up anywhere you want. And like that becomes its own kind of fun where it's like, you know, how can we sort of like break the mobility like limits on our characters now that there are 2 of us. It's one of the things that like I always look for in a Mario game is like, what are my like extended mobility techniques? Like in Odyssey, you know, I love have this like jump, throw the cap, dive at the cap, jump off the cap, throw the cap again, dive again. Just like how do I get just a few more pixels out of it? And it's cool to have that with another person. And I think that that's you know, missing from any like solo Mario experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It does open up the world in like fun and interesting ways, and it also just makes it more accessible, right? Because like with 2 people, I don't know if it would be possible with like 3 or 4. But with 2 people, you can kind of like carry each other when you need to,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
right? It's
Yeah.
like you can escape death.
Right.
You can make and so the level design accommodates that, where it's like, do you know what? I'm just gonna throw myself off this edge to get this coin,
Right, and bubble.
and then I'll just bubble, or I
Right.
won't, and it'll be fine because you're like up here at safety.
Right. And
And
then I'll be down to 53 lives and we'll be okay.
and I think like that sort of thing where both you and I are kind of like, I don't know that I'd want to play this game by myself. I think that's another reason why these games are, I don't know, I guess in a way like misunderstood. Like they are almost uh not done any favors by being Mario games, by being new Super Mario Brother games.
Interesting.
You know, because what we it has the fun platforming that we expect from a Mario game, but by introducing these new elements, it almost like confuses it confuses it because it's like, well, you have the new what is a new Super Mario Brothers game? What do you expect from it? Because you have multiplayer entries, you have single player entries, you have the coin rush thing of the 3DS title. You know, it's kind of a series with like an identity crisis, and maybe drilling down into the core of what they want New Super Mario Brothers to be, because it's clearly not just more 16-bit Mario, right? You know,
Right,
it's not like a
yes.
Sonic Mania type nostalgia play. It's, but I don't know that they know exactly where they want this series to go or what, like where it exists.
Right, because like the question is like, is it a social series or isn't it? And the Wii and Wii U versions would suggest yes, it is a social,
And I think
social series.
those are the more successful entries.
Yeah, well, and the interesting thing, and you know, we didn't really get a chance to dig into it over the weekend, but there is a sort of soft sequel to the Wii U version, just called New Super Luigi U,
From the Year of Luigi.
from the Year of Luigi, and it is all of the like levels like chopped up and in sort of like with a shortened time limit, and it's all like score attack basically. It takes the sort of multiplayer social thing and drives it down into like a single person doing it as fast and as good as they can, which I mean that sort of hits the a couple weeks ago when we were like trying to make up our own Mario game and we were pulling components from existing Mario games. You know, I said that I want that kind of like arcadey action of Super Mario Run, and like the Super Luigi U kind of delivers that. And if New Super Mario Brothers U and Luigi U could be considered one package, and I sort of do because for me they're on one disc. They came packed in with my Wii U. That does make it feel like a pretty complete Mario game package. I don't know that I would still ever really consider it in like my favorite Mario games of all time, but I don't know, like my kind of thinking on the game is like deepening just like with every time I actually sit down to play it. I don't know how many more times that'll be though. Like um since we played it this weekend, have you like thought back on it and be like, "Oh yeah, I'd like to get back to that."
Well, for all of our complaints about the game and, you know, like things we don't like about it, it's still Mario.
Right.
It's still a Nintendo made platformer. It's still a lot of fun. You know, like I don't think I feel like any reason or any like need to go back and play through it by myself, but if somebody was like, "Hey, do you want to play New Super Mario Brothers for a while?" I absolutely would.
Right. If somehow it were on at a party, yeah, you'd sit down and play it. So I mean, that actually is a nice transition point to talking about what we think New Super Mario Brothers' role is more generally in possibly the future of Nintendo. While we were playing this weekend, the thought kept occurring to me that like this would be a perfect type of game on Switch.
Absolutely. Like it's this is the kind of game the Switch is built for, where you bring it over, you have it, you pull off the Joy-Con and hand it to somebody and you're able to play multiplayer Mario.
Right. Like the Mario that is on Switch at present does not fit the hardware, right? Ditto, Zelda for that matter. I mean, other than the portability factor, which plays into both of them pretty well. But the idea that like you could have multiplayer anywhere, those games don't really they don't figure into that. But a new Super Mario Brothers style game sure would. And like, man, what a cool, like, effortless way to show off the power of that thing by just like dropping it down and bam, now we're all playing Mario Brothers together. I don't know. I think it'd be really like maybe I don't agree that New Super Mario Brothers U is the best Mario game, but I think New Super Mario Brothers Switch has the you know capacity to be that.
I would totally buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Because like it's so much more it's so approachable. This series is so approachable for
Mhm.
anybody, right? Like in a way that 3D Mario isn't. Everybody has played a 2D platformer. Pretty much everybody has played a Mario game.
Right. Right.
And
People can handle run to the right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so it is I'm super excited to see where this series goes.
Yeah. Do you think we get more of this series? Because there are no guarantees, right?
Right, absolutely. Especially with a company like Nintendo,
Mhm.
who they get off on being withholding.
They do get off on being withholding.
No, they're not always interested in repeating themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And
With one big exception being the new Super Mario Brothers series, right?
but even then, I mean, I think you could argue that they iterate within
Yes.
each.
Mm-hmm.
Y- they introduce new mechanics, and again, I think it's um a sad hallmark of the new Super Mario Brothers series that it doesn't have like a real identity out of it's the new like run to the right Mario.
Mm-hmm.
But
Man, that branding is just such a bummer. New.
yeah, it I don't know. They've kind of like painted themselves into the corner with the series. So I don't know if we see it continue but I think it would be a huge bummer to me if we lose this kind of like 4-player
Mm-hmm.
2D Mario. And I think honestly with the 3DS and the DS kind of in the rearview mirror, and if Nintendo is pursuing this kind of hybrid machine platforms going forward, I think that's an identity that really works for these games. And
Mm-hmm.
so that like multiplayer aspect, right? Like, am I really looking forward to a single player version of this? No, not really.
Yeah.
But give me a 4-player version on the Switch and I'm totally into it.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's still sort of like the Wii U version of this game and the Wii version were sort of necessarily couch co-op games exclusively. um I wonder if that like remains a necessity, or if since it is also a handheld, you could do like at least local wireless play. It's like I still don't think it really makes sense to like take it online and like play with your friends across the country or
Yeah, the
whatever.
local part of it seems like a huge necessity.
Yeah. But even still, like being able to, like the Switch commercial from back in the day promise of, you are playing NBA 2K on two Switches together, right?
Right. I mean, when you're taking a break from
From playing
playing
real
actual
basketball. So when you're taking a real break from jumping on turtles and
basketball.
collecting coins, that you and your friends could, I think that ability to communicate between Switches would be important in like the sort of modern incarnation of that.
Yeah, and would be totally fun.
So we sort of hinted at it already, but I like the idea that there are sort of like hidden extensions of the new Super Mario Brothers like franchise, like Super Mario Run is effectively a new Super Mario Brothers game, or at least based on a new Super Mario Brothers game. Um, and obviously the theme is present in Mario Maker on both the Wii U and 3DS. But kind of beyond that, so how many games does that make that? There are 4 like main series ones, and then there's Luigi, and then there's Run, which is 6, and then like Mario Maker. So there's like 7-ish games that that this new Super Mario Brothers branding has been stamped on.
Which is a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot of games. I mean, how many games, are in the Super Mario Brothers 3 engine? 2 if you want to count Mario Maker,
Yeah.
It's Nintendo doesn't like to repeat themselves except with new Super Mario Brothers. Well, Mark, do you have any further thoughts about our experiences with this game in particular, or the role of the new games more generally?
I mean, I think we spent a lot of time talking about the things we didn't like about it, but I don't know. We really did have fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun game. There are, there's some like really good platforming.
Mm-hmm.
It's great to play with friends. So I don't hate it. I don't think it's like the worst. It's definitely not the worst Mario game.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm glad we played it.
Yeah.
Because
me
I
too.
definitely think it's like my favorite of the new Super Mario Brother games.
Yeah, that's interesting.
If they left this branding behind,
mm-hmm.
I don't think I would be sad though.
Yeah, I don't think I would either. I mean, if for no other reason than I'm done with the art style. They could still call it new if it looked like something different, but I don't. I think those character models, those like overly simple character models, are like a hallmark of that.
It also feels very much a product of its time.
Yeah,
like that art style.
Yeah, for sure.
Like even it does not benefit from being rendered in high definition.
No, I don't think it looks plastic in high def. Well, all right, Mark, let's close out this topic. And just because we've closed out the topic does not mean that the topic is closed out. I had a tough time saying that. You've probably had some experience with the new Super Mario Brothers series because it has sold millions. So if you have any reactions to anything we've said about that or would like to weigh in with your own experiences, you can email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. Or you can tweet it. Or you can tweet at us. I'm fine. We are at NinCart Society, and the Facebook page is just Nintendo Cartridge Society.
And if you haven't listened to the Tuesday news episode,
mm-hmm.
you probably missed the news that Patrick is lending out his copy of Sonic Forces.
I bought Sonic Forces. I think it's a bust. I don't want to play it anymore, but I would like other people to experience it, at least for a couple minutes. So if you would like to borrow my copy of Sonic Forces, just email us your address and I'll shoot it on over to you. You can play it for a little while and then send it back to me. And that would be cool. Again, it's just Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. And remember, rate and review, subscribe, all that good stuff. That's going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. If you like Mark and Mine's opinions, we write about comic books on retconpunch.com. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can find more of 8-Bit Betty's music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thanks for listening.
What's a Creative Podcast Network?
Hey folks, it's Casey and Jonathan from the Sleepers Podcast.
That's right.
We are a fantasy football podcast. But guess what else? We do a lot of fun stuff on our podcast. If you don't like fantasy football, that's fine, because we're not actually that good at giving fantasy football advice.
No, I actually don't even enjoy it.
It's not even fun.
It's not even
we
fun.
both want to die.
Yeah.
It's great.
No.
We do segments on our show. We have fun. We do segments like today we recasted the cast of Seinfeld. Recast Seinfeld
With NFL players.
with NFL players. Oh, can you imagine how
Oh
funny
my
that
God.
was?
Last week we had a thing about which Halloween costume an NFL player would have worn as a kid.
Guess what? Gronk was a potato.
Oh my
it was
God.
crazy.
It was crazy.
We're having fun. We hope you like it. Anyway, thank you so much to Patrick and Mark We love you. We love Nintendo Cartridge Society.
Absolutely. And if you want to check us out, we are the Sleepers Podcast.
Also, we have a Twitter that we talk about.
At Sleepers Podcast.
Hey, thanks. Bye.
Goodbye.